My grandpa was in World War II. He was on the crew for an 8-inch howitzer cannon, basically. It was artillery. And he waited about 50 years to tell me a highly classified secret that he hadn't told anybody else. It was in the early 90s. I was very young, and he figured, you know what? It's been long enough. I can finally talk about it. The thing that he talked about was a particular round that had a radar system built into it so that it knew how far from the ground it was once it was sent through the cannon. So the radar would be able to figure out the distance, and you could pre-program it to detonate at different distances from the ground. Now, there was a fail-safe system built in that he didn't know about, and there was one day where it was freezing cold, the ground was frozen solid, and they're carrying one of these shells and they drop it on the ground, and they were all waiting for it to explode, but they didn't know that it had to spin through the barrel before it was fully armed. So that was a fun, I almost died story from my grandpa. But that round in particular was the second development from a lab called the Applied Physics Laboratory that was spun up in March 10th of 1940 something. I'll put it on the screen here. And that was the result of that radar round was developed specifically to help defend ships in the Pacific theater. And it worked so well there that they brought it over to the Western Front, and my grandpa was one of the people who used that round. And how in the world does that have anything to do with applied psychology? Well, it has everything to do with applied psychology, because the way I think about it is that we've had physics forever, basically. And it wasn't until the 1940s that we developed specifically applied physics. And applied physics unlocked radar and the atom through atomic energy and the bomb and everything else since then. And the difference between physics and applied physics is exactly the same difference between psychology and applied psychology. So the general idea is that physics is the understanding of how things work, and then applied physics is using that knowledge and information and insight to unlock new abilities and capabilities that we never had before. And the same thing goes for psychology. Psychology is the scientific understanding of how the mind works, how we feel what we feel, why we think the way that we think, and what things we think. And then applied psychology is taking all of that knowledge and information and then solving practical situations and challenges with that insight. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. Now, psychology has to do with our short game, our inner game, the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and all of that kind of thing. And then applied psychology is for our mid game, our environments, and the tools and systems that we're using, and helping them become more effective at helping us change our environment and use tools that are more effective to get bigger results with less effort and time. And then it also applies to our long game for helping us understand the roles that we're playing in those different environments. And the goals that we've set, are these goals that we genuinely want, that we genuinely care about, or is this from something else setting this into our mind as our goal inside this environment? And also, is this the correct pathway that we are taking to accomplish that goal? There might be a shorter, faster, better approach to that same outcome if you work with your inner game of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions than trying to do it the way that we've always done it. And then that gets into the deep game of our our stories, our narrative, our meaning, our relationship to mystery and life itself. So that's why, to me, applied psychology is profoundly useful across a whole bunch of different situations. And I also just realized, if you don't understand what I'm talking about with short game and mid game, long and deep, I'll put a link to a video that explains that language and the whole framework that is very simple, elegant, but powerful, that helps you kind of navigate reality, which is one of the better things that you can do, and a phenomenal example of how simple and powerful applied psychology can be. So imagine that you are a doctor and it's your job, it is your sworn vow to help people, and your prescription is work out more. How are you going to get your patient to follow through on your recommendation? Or if they need to have life-saving surgery or a procedure or take a vaccine or whatever it is, how in the world are you going to have enough rapport and authority and trust and buy-in to get your patient to believe you in the short amount of time that you have to persuade them? So this is a perfect example of where applied psychology can help you solve that very difficult problem that has deep, profound complications and results to the decisions you make in a very short time. Applied psychology can also help you on the educational front. I mean, kids love to play and have fun. And if you make the lessons and information and what you're trying to teach them fun and playful, they're going to be much more open to learning what it is that you would like them to know. That is profoundly different from the government indoctrination camps that we call schools, that were developed for an industrialized society that came up and is no longer from last century. But hey, it makes you sit down, shut up, and follow instructions, which I guess works great for the system, but it does nothing for igniting the fire of creativity and learning and passion for knowledge that, in my book, education should be. In my book, YouTube and other people who are sharing all of their knowledge in a fun, engaging way are leveraging applied psychology in a much more effective way than legacy education and the government systems of repeating things and the rote memorization and all the awful strategies for learning that we know don't work, but the system likes it that way. So they really hope that you don't understand the power of applied psychology to create more effective, more interesting, more dynamic environments where people can thrive without the need of that system. Imagine you are a lawyer and your client, their life is in your hands. If you understand how that jury is going to make their decision about your client's guilt or innocence, then you would be able to present the right information in the right way at the right time for them to make the right choice to either convict or not. So this stuff isn't just theoretical. It is highly practical and applied to real world situations of life and death. So that's why the theory and the application of that theory are two completely separate worlds. And that's why in my view, magicians have had 10,000 years head start on the scientific theory understanding of how the human mind works. Without a theory of explaining why this works, magicians have been able to do tricks 10,000 years ago that still work today. So they couldn't tell you what neurons are firing and the mirror neurons and none of that research has figured out. but they're still able to leverage their understanding of what works to accomplish a specific outcome or goal. So that's why, to me, the applied sciences are more interesting and effective for solving your problems than just understanding theory or a hypothesis about how they think something might be working. When in doubt, go with what works. And that's why what's really fascinating is that the mind is all made up anyways. And it's not real in the sense that you can weigh an atom, you can count atoms, that it's real physical stuff. The mind is an experience. It's a field. It's the ether. It's radio waves of spirit across space and time. And the folks who really love counting stuff hate that you can accomplish incredible things in your mind through non-logical, non-reasonable ways and skills and techniques that have no place in physical reality. So they discount it as woo-woo or made up or non-reason. This isn't reasonable. This isn't logical. And you go, yeah, I know. The mind has existed way before logic came around. And if it's a made up problem, you can't logic your way out of a made up problem. You need a creative made up solution. So that's why applied psychology even goes beyond the logical, the rational, the reasonable into and beyond in the realm of myth and ritual and magic in the capital M kind of sense. So that's why, to me, when people ask me, so what do you do? You're a mentalist. What does that mean? Are you psychic? Do you have the gift? Were you born with this power? Or is this a skill that anybody can learn? That's why I say it is a unique combination of applied psychology, showmanship, and moxie, just having the gumption to pull off the stuff that I do every day at work. And it's the applied psychology that is the major factor of that. I'm going to do more videos about the showmanship and moxie part of that equation. But I find that the applied psychology is the element that most people have the most trouble wrapping their head around. So that's why I wanted to share the story of my grandpa and that round that he kept secret for decades after he used it. And it is just a really interesting find when I did research about that it came from the applied physics laboratory from Johns Hopkins. I was like, oh, okay, that's too cool to not talk about. And that's if you are interested in this kind of thing, then I would highly, highly suggest that you check out my video on real shadow work and what that is and what it means and why a lot of the folks who talk about it are kind of missing the mark on what it is and how to do that shadow work. So I'll put that on the screen if I haven't already, and you can subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. That lets me know that this might be the kind of thing that you'd like to see more of. And in the meantime, always remember, if you can change your mind, you can change your life.